State lawmakers continue their fight to curb juvenile crime. We are live in Annapolis, breaking down the changes House Republicans are pushing for. A 4-year investigation yields a major victory over gangs in Maryland. We take a deep dive into the conviction and sentencing of 8 gang members in Howard County. Then a debate among leaders and residents on the revitalization of Baltimore's Harbor Place, the additional proposals from the council that would go into the hands of voters.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. A Senate committee hearing testimony right now on a few juvenile crime bills.
It comes as we see more instances of juveniles getting involved in violence, both as victims and suspects.
Pressure is mounting for lawmakers to take action in Annapolis.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is live in Annapolis for us with the latest from lawmakers today. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Mary and Kai, so a lot of the conversation right now is dealing with some of the Republican-backed bills, and we continue to have these conversations in committee hearings discussing bills that supporters say would curb juvenile violence across Maryland. Now, right now, again, the testimony stretching into several hours now. This hearing started at 1 o'clock, and we continue to hear debate on both sides of the issue. Right now, a lot of these Republican-backed plans mathematically simply will need Democrats to get on board, given the supermajorities in both chambers, if there's going to be any success on these pieces of legislation. Now, earlier we heard testimony about several bills, including one that calls for allowing parents to have a larger say in the Juvenile Interrogation Act. This specific bill does have some bipartisan support, and it calls for allowing parents to speak with their child before answering any questions or before an attorney is even called during that custodial interrogation process. We know that this has been a large piece of discussion and a lot of conversation surrounding this, as well as another piece of legislation allowing states' attorneys to have a larger say and an earlier say in when charges are filed when a juvenile is picked up and accused of committing certain offenses. Going back to the Interrogation Act, though, we've heard from supporters who argue that giving up or changing the legislation is simply because police and prosecutors do not understand the law itself. Before this committee hearing started, we questioned the Wicomico state's attorney about that and her concerns, and her view is pretty clear.
Anyone who has a question should read the law, and they should talk to somebody who practically applies the law. It effectively, quite literally, prevents the questioning of child suspects who are children.
Now, there was also conversations earlier today about a bill that would require data to be collected anytime a child is picked up involved in a crime where there is a firearm that is being used. Now, once that information is collected, the General Assembly could then have that information in a report form. Some supporters argue that this would really allow the state to get a better picture of what is truly going on with juvenile crime across Maryland. The conversation is still happening in the committee room. Right over my shoulder, you can see some people still going in and out, and I'm told that there are no votes expected to be taken today, but that could change later this week.
And Mackenzie, what can you tell us about a proposal to make having a stolen gun a felony?
Yeah, right now that is the possession of a stolen firearm in Maryland is a misdemeanor. And there has been a similar bill that has been introduced for several years, and it has cleared the Senate several times now, but it routinely stalls in the House. And we just saw a new Gonzalez poll out today that indicates that 88% of Marylanders supports making the possession of a stolen firearm a felony. This bill is set to be heard tomorrow during a separate committee hearing. But earlier today, we spoke with Patrick Gonzalez, the pollster behind these latest numbers, and he says that lawmakers are clearly, they have this information clear in front of them based on where Marylanders stand based on this poll.
The Maryland legislature and Maryland voters' minds needs to pass a law that makes possession of a stolen firearm a felony. But this is one of those issues. It's a serious, very important issue. Stop playing. Don't play games. If you, in your heart as a legislator, just can't do it for yourself, please do it for your constituents.
Now, we'll have to wait and see what happens during that committee hearing scheduled again to take place tomorrow. And again, this did clear the Senate several times. It'll be up to the House to see what happens again this year. We're live in Annapolis. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. 2 weeks ago, Democrats unveiled their juvenile crime plan, which includes 3 main pillars. They want to change a portion of the state's current crime code. Right now, children under 13 can't be charged with certain crimes like firearm offenses, sexual assault, and car thefts.
Democrats are also looking for changes within the Department of Juvenile Services, including shorter deadlines for intake decisions and more staff within the ankle monitoring unit.
And the plan strives to extend probation for young offenders. Supporters of the new plan argue the current system doesn't allow enough time for proper rehabilitation, and they want judges and attorneys more involved in the process.
That leads us to our question of the day. Who do you trust to handle the juvenile crime crisis, Republicans or Democrats? That poll just opened. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to make your voice heard.
Baltimore police are turning to the public to help find multiple suspects caught on camera last week. This video from Friday night shows 2 suspects moments before police say they robbed a victim. It happened just after 8:30 along Bolton Street in West Baltimore. Anybody with information should contact Baltimore police.
Also last week, a double murder is caught on camera. Thursday night around 10 o'clock, police say 2 people were killed in this shooting at a convenience store on Bel Air Road. The suspect was wearing all black and arrived at the store in a white Chrysler van. Minutes later, police say he shot and killed 1 victim outside the store and a second in a nearby car, then ran from the scene, followed by the van he arrived in. Metro Crime Stoppers is offering an $8,000 reward to anyone with information leading to an arrest.
A jury's guilty verdict for the leader of the 59 Hoover gang, which operated out of Howard County, marks the end of a nearly 4-year-long case. Alexa Ashwell has more on the verdict and how authorities dismantled the gang.
Jeremy Quinton Lewis, the named leader of the 59 Hoover gang, a subset of the notorious Crips that officials say had staked its claim in Columbia, Maryland, found guilty of murder and other gang-related charges.
Good morning, everyone.
Howard County State's Attorney Rich Gibson making the announcement alongside Howard County Executive Calvin Ball and area law enforcement leaders. All 8 members of the 59 Hoover gang indicted 2 years ago, now convicted. Its leader, Lewis, the latest.
This last case, involving 8 members of the 59 Hoover criminal gang, has concluded with the conviction of its leader.
The investigation into the 59 Hoover gang dates back to 2020, when officials say investigators determined the gang was responsible for committing the most serious crimes in Howard County.
Our investigators determined that many, if not most, of the serious crimes in Howard County could be linked to this small group. Investigations of guns, drugs, and violence kept leading to the same suspects.
2 years later, the members were indicted. This court document detailing the hierarchy of the gang, how members used drugs and guns to carry out their criminal enterprise, and specific murders, shootings, assaults, and robberies investigators say they committed throughout Howard County. Lewis just found guilty of one of those murders, the May 2021 shooting death of Jaden Ely at a gas station in Columbia. Authorities linked the gang to at least one other killing, charging another one of its leaders, Daquan Woodson, with the May 2020 murder of Yasel Galvin.
Another defendant was Daquan Woodson, pled guilty to conspiracy to commit robbery, use of a firearm in a commission of a crime of violence, assault in the first degree, and gang involvement. He received a sentence of 65 years, suspend all but 18 years.
Here, it details Woodson was an adjudicated delinquent, meaning as a youth he was found by a judge to have violated a criminal law. His conviction in this case speaking to the ongoing calls for reform to the juvenile justice system, as whatever consequence he faced did not deter further criminal behavior.
There was drugs, there was gun offenses, there was gun dealing, there were assaults, controlling turf.
A shocking reality to some. Columbia has been named the safest city in America twice in recent years. Officials questioned on that.
We've taken a significant step in reducing their involvement here in Howard County. As long as people continue to look out for one another and speak up when they see things that are in error, we can work together to ensure that our safety remains a paramount virtue for this community.
Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
And Lewis will be sentenced May 1st.
The future of Baltimore's iconic Harbor Place is being debated at City Hall today.
The City Council considering legislation on zoning and a possible charter amendment to allow apartments flanking the harbor. Fox 45's Amy Simpson live after sitting in on this hearing this afternoon. Amy, what's the latest on it?
Yeah, so Mary Kai, this hearing really drawing a crowd, leaving few empty seats inside of City Council chambers, inside of City Hall here. And it's really speaking to the magnitude of interest on behalf of the public on what happens next to this portion of Baltimore City's downtown. Now, developer P. David Bramble of MCB Real Estate, he unveiled renderings in the fall, as you may remember, showing his vision for Harbor Place in the future. The proposal is looking to add hundreds of housing units, retail, commercial space, an amphitheater, and green space. This plan has been publicly backed by Mayor Brandon Scott. And today, City Council's Economic and Community Development Committee listening to public input on 3 different bills to amend land use, zoning, and a height restriction along the Inner Harbor. The committee also debating a proposed charter amendment that would allow multifamily housing units here at the harbor. And according to the legislation, that charter amendment would need to go to Baltimore City voters for adoption or rejection. And at the beginning of this hearing, about 2:30 p.m., Councilman Eric Costello, who is sponsoring these bills, he spoke about just the high level of interest in this project.
Whether you love it, you hate it, you're not sure, folks are interested in what could potentially happen here.
Now, Mary Kai, developer P. David Bramble, he is sitting front row listening to this hearing as it unfolds. He actually just addressed council himself a few minutes ago. Public testimony, public input, discussion, debate is expected to begin any minute now. We're going to head back inside. We'll have a live update at 5:30. Live at City Hall, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Out here shoveling snow this morning. Wasn't expecting it at all. Yesterday I was outside breaking like we were talking about. Now today it's snowing.
I was expecting some snow. I was not expecting the school to be canceled.
Residents across Maryland did wake up to some snowy conditions this morning. Not a surprise. Gerard talked about that yesterday. Some school systems closed for the day or even moved to virtual learning.
And this, Gerard, since you're new here, is such a typical Maryland 2 days in one, right?
It really
Snowy
is. It's crazy.
Craziness and now sunny and beautiful behind you.
Unbelievable.
You know, if we have to deal with it, at least let it be very quick. So if you're not a fan of one, you get the other.
That's right. There you go. Something for everyone.
Exactly. A little bit of choice there to have. So good evening, Kai. Good evening, Mary. And good evening, everybody else. You could say afternoon if you like. We're not quite there, but, you know, the sun's coming down. And here's how things are looking outside right now. We've been watching the wind kind of blowing right there across the Inner Harbor. And we've had plenty of that coming by as we're continuing to see the winds gusting around 25 miles per hour. 45 degrees right now, but with the wind does make it feel a little bit chillier. But hey, the sun came out and it melted away all the snow that we had other than some shady spots. But there's our storm system continuing to pull away. It hammered everywhere from northern New Jersey, New York City up to Boston with a lot more snow than what we saw. We only got the very edge of it, and it was enough to, of course, coat the ground. But it was the right kind of snow, in my opinion, where it can still look nice if you're a snow fan, but not cause absolute havoc on the roads. It melted away quite quickly, and we didn't have to deal with it for a lot. All right, so the only thing we're going to have to deal with the rest of the night, again, some breezy conditions, and then chilling down. We'll be below freezing as we get past midnight. We've got another weather maker already I'm watching. We're going to talk about that, and I'll show you what is looking like as we head to the weekend, too, coming up.
Gerard, thanks. We mentioned today's storm closed schools across the state, but one community seems to think their classes should have stayed open. Why Baltimore County parents are so frustrated with the decision.
Would Marylanders be willing to help pay for the multi-billion-dollar deficit in the state's transportation budget? The new data from a poll asking if you're okay with a higher sales tax statewide.
Are gangs in New York City trying to recruit new migrants? The growing concerns in some cities as lawmakers battle over the border crisis.
Join us on Monday, February 19th from 7-8 p.m. when Governor Wes Moore, Maryland State Attorney Ivan Bates, and Prince George's County State Attorney Aisha Braveboy join us to discuss crime, solutions, and the community. I'm Armstrong Williams.
First the rain and then the snow. A nor'easter left many in Maryland waking up in a winter wonderland this morning. Some areas seeing 3 to 5 inches of snow. Carroll County saw most of the snow this morning, prompting school closures there with a few inches on the ground. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker, just back from maternity leave, joins us, and we sent you all the way to Westminster on your first day back with a closer look at the conditions. We're glad you're back. We missed you.
Oh, it's good to be back. Thank you, Mary. And you can tell the sun has melted most of the snow now, as Gerard said. None of it creating too much havoc. It was just that pretty snow. The road's clear and dry now. But earlier today, there was a few inches on the ground, creating some work for many.
In Carroll County, a snow-covered field at McDaniel College meant work to do.
Yes!
For head women's lacrosse coach Kristen Ramey this morning.
I am shoveling our turf. What I thought we would have only had maybe some slush. I realized we had probably an inch or two out here.
She's clearing the boundary lines.
All right. I found the crease and started shoveling there and then worked my way out.
Preparing for a chilly afternoon session with one of her dedicated athletes.
If one of our athletes asks for individual work, it's like, yes, how can we make this happen? All right, it's not frozen. You good?
I'm from Amherst, Massachusetts.
For Emily Ireland.
I texted Coach this morning just to make sure we were still on.
The sun.
The few inches of snow was merely a dusting.
I'm used to like a foot, so it's not bad.
That's better. Yes, it is rare. We do have a plow, but again, I think we thought like, hey, it's gonna melt soon. The sun is gonna be out this afternoon. And when you get kind of like walking around on it, it helps break it up and melts pretty quick.
By afternoon, the gutters around Westminster were dripping and sidewalks were soggy.
I was actually surprised when I woke up and saw as much snow as we had, but it wasn't bad.
The snow here and practically gone.
The sun is shining, and in 2 hours you won't even know it snowed.
In the blink of an eye.
Good. We are always ready and welcoming the warm weather.
So my schools were closed as well here today and in Baltimore County, where, as you mentioned, there was a little frustration over that decision. We'll have more on that coming up at 5. But live for now in Carroll County, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. Yeah, snow day in Baltimore County. Not everybody happy about it. Parents taking to Twitter to voice some of their frustration with the decision. Let's take a look at some of the posts. Baltimore County Public Schools, that's crazy. Closing because it's cold and a little bit of snow. It's called winter. This one, they just want a day off. Well, maybe the kids do, that's for sure. And it's going to be close to 50 degrees today. Now, just in fairness, this is what it looked like in northern Baltimore County. So there were some snow-covered roads. Much of it has melted. But the question is, with that snow melting today, will it freeze overnight and cause even more issues tomorrow morning? Let's get right over to Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali with the answer. Gerard.
Hey, Mary, it's going to get cold enough, but did we all dry out? That's the question. And, well, we had a decent amount of snowfall everywhere, but I want to remind everyone about one thing. Whether you got this much and it really needed closing or the very bottom, there's one word that goes around, at least the one that I hear when it comes to school closings: liability. Keep that in mind. So you have kids out there, want to protect them. They're being on the safe side for good reasons, of course. But anywhere across the Baltimore area, including northern Baltimore County, 3 inches of snow. Now, most of this was on grassy surfaces, of course, but some of it came down heavy enough to collect on roads, although it was brief. And then it was just wet roads as we moved through the morning. And finally, we are drying up. But look at that. Some places got 5, 6, 7 inches of snowfall. So tonight, definitely going to be cold enough. If there are any wet roads remaining, they will likely freeze over in some spots, so you will see some slick areas, but that may be just where the snow is still kind of melting away. A lot of other places have already dried out. So that's the way your Wednesday is going to start. So your Valentine's Day looking pretty good, although chilly. We will see more sunshine. It will just be a little bit cooler going out for the evening. Going to be chilling down once again. We'll be hitting the 20s for the overnight. So this is another one of those typical winter days that we'll have. Now, when's our next weather maker going to hit? We already have one we're watching that's headed from the Midwest and parts of the Great Lakes region. This one looks pretty small. So we are going to get very meager rainfall, if any, as we move through overnight through Thursday into Friday. But otherwise, we're going to be fairly quiet until the next one comes our way. And this one, once again, has the potential to produce a little bit of snowfall, likely as we head into late Friday night or Saturday. We're still going to be watching this one because we're right there on that freezing line again. A small shift to the north. We're in the rain. Small shift to the south. We could be seeing some snowfall. Could it be accumulating snowfall? We'll find out. In the meantime, enjoy tomorrow. It's going to be a great day. Valentine's should be still sunny, but we're a little chilly in the 40s for your afternoon. But if you're headed out for some evening dinner plans or something like that, chilly weather. So good time to try out your fanciest and nicest jackets. Gentlemen, that includes you. Yes, you got to dress up. It's part of the deal. 35 days away from the start of spring. If you're ready for it, like me, I'm ready for it. We're not too far out, and soon we will all be sneezing from all the pollen here soon as the temperatures warm up. All right, sticking to the 40s as we move through the rest of the week until maybe Monday into Tuesday when we finally will break out of that into the 50s. That's no chance on Saturday.
Gerard, thanks. Well, many of you are sharing your snow day pictures with us. On the left, Robert sent us this picture of his pup enjoying the snow in Finksburg. In the middle, Danielle from Manchester sending in the picture of the winter wonderland outside of her house. And on the right, Kristen telling us she got about 3 inches in Conowingo. We want to see the snowy conditions in your neighborhood. Scan that QR code right there on your screen. It'll take you to foxbaltimore.com where you can upload your pictures and your videos, all powered by Stackla. A new statewide poll asks Marylanders if they would pay up to help the state with some of its top priorities, finding out where voters stand on key issues. House lawmakers making another push to impeach the head of the Department of Homeland Security. The battle in Congress as concerns over migrant crime grow in some cities. House Republicans are expected to try to impeach DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas again for his handling of the border crisis. At the same time, New York City is facing an increase in crime as gangs are recruiting migrants. National correspondent Janae Bowens has a look at the growing issues.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Top leaders in New York City say a wave of migrant crime has washed over the city. Although murders, rapes, and burglaries are down, robberies are up by more than 8% compared to this time last year. And there are several headlines of foreign gang members terrorizing innocent New Yorkers and a teen migrant accused of shooting and injuring a tourist in Times Square.
they avoid apprehension and make their way to every town, city, and state.
Nearly 800,000 migrants have crossed the southern border in fiscal year 2024 so far. And according to the New York Post, some of those migrants are part of a brutal Venezuelan gang. Their members are reportedly going to New York City and recruiting members and migrant shelters, and could also be joining forces with the MS-13 gang. Former acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan, says it's an issue that's been going on all over the country for years.
A lot of these individuals, they don't speak the language, they have no job skills, they have no familiar connection here, and no way to make a living, and so they make just prime targets for gang recruitment.
The gang members are accused of riding mopeds to steal people's phones. They then drain the victims' bank accounts and send the phones to Colombia to be wiped, reprogrammed, and sold. On top of that, 7 migrants have been indicted in connection to an assault of 2 NYPD officers last month.
The overwhelming number of migrants and asylum seekers are law-abiding, and they're pursuing the American dream. And this district attorney's office and the NYPD will partner with each other to pursue those who break the laws in our city.
The mayor has put in a curfew for 20 more migrant shelters.
We should be coming up with policies and throwing our money at the border to secure the border, to stop the chaos and lawlessness, to stop criminals from entering the country.
Many calling for more action at the border to keep Americans safe. I'm Janae Bowens reporting.
Still ahead, lawmakers in Annapolis are moving forward to fulfill a promise how they plan to close the disturbing loophole that allows juvenile sex offenders to attend Maryland schools without notifying students or parents. And would you support a sales tax bump to help improve Maryland's roads? Breaking down new polling data showing what Marylanders would be willing to do to fix key problems across the state.
A new Gonzales research poll highlights a range of issues, including Governor Moore's approval rating, the issue of stolen firearms, and increasing taxes for transportation projects.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost joining us live to break down the numbers. Mackenzie.
Yeah, Mary and Kai, so this Gonzalez research poll really underscores one of the biggest topics that lawmakers are grappling with this session: how to fund transportation. We know that the Department of Transportation is facing a $3 billion shortfall over the next 3 years, and the conversation is centering around how to fund some of these big projects across Maryland. Governor Wes Moore, we know, dipped into the state's rainy day fund this year to help offset some of those budget shortfalls for this year, but long-term funding sources remain some of the biggest concerns. And according to this new research poll, they asked Marylanders if they would support raising the sales tax from 6% to 7%. And the results are interesting and really underscores the situation that lawmakers are faced with right now. 37% of Marylanders say that they oppose raising the sales tax. 37% say that they support raising the sales tax, and 60% say that they oppose raising the sales tax. And we spoke with pollster Patrick Gonzalez earlier this morning about some of these numbers, and he really broke it down for us, giving us the lay of the land for Marylanders, especially lawmakers, as they figure out what comes next.
And the reality is a penny equals 6%, which is currently the sales tax, to 7%. So I think it's fair. Now, if we go the other direction, I can make a very good case. If you increase the sales tax from 6% to 7%, yeah, it's a penny, but 6 to 7 is a 16.666% increase.
Now, raising the sales tax isn't the only idea that lawmakers are kicking around this session. There's also the conversation surrounding how to handle the increase in electric vehicles that are driving around on Maryland roads, especially when they aren't fueling up at gas stations and therefore aren't paying the state's gas tax. Now, right now, again, lawmakers do not seem to be in a rush to address some of these concerns right now, since the governor did dip into the rainy day fund for this upcoming budget year. But it is teeing up a much larger conversation that lawmakers will have to address at least next session. We're live in Annapolis. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. The Gonzalez poll also addressed Governor Moore's job approval. As Moore nears the halfway point of his second session, 58% of those polled said they approve of the job he's doing as governor. 28% disapprove, with 14% giving no response.
What I would call them are good numbers. And oftentimes I get asked to compare it to his predecessor, Governor Larry Hogan, in his 8 years, who always had very high numbers. But that's not a fair comparison. In my mind, a fair comparison would be comparing Governor Wes Moore's numbers with Governor Martin O'Malley. It's more both Democrats, both dealing with a hostile party, the Republicans, in that. And I would say in that context, Governor Moore's numbers stack up pretty good.
Last week, Governor Moore unveiled his vision for Maryland. The governor says that plan complements his budget and legislative agenda. It focuses on 10 priorities, including ending child poverty, setting up students for success, making communities safer, creating more affordable housing, and making Maryland a leader in clean energy. Many are criticizing the price tag, however, as the state faces a $1.8 billion budget deficit by the end of the decade.
Yesterday, we asked you, do you support raising taxes to pay for Governor Moore's state plan? 98% of those who voted said no.
The Gonzalez poll also addressed the fentanyl crisis. 83% of those polled support a mandatory sentence of 10 years in prison for anyone convicted of selling drugs laced with fentanyl if the drug results in a death. Only 13% of those polled oppose the measure.
Project Baltimore is sponsored by the Snyder Law Group. Don't just sue them, Snyder them.
2 months remain in this year's legislative session in Annapolis, and lawmakers are moving forward with legislation to keep juvenile sex offenders from attending public schools in person.
Project Baltimore's Chris Papp shows us the progress made to keep your children safe.
This amendment is perhaps the most important part of this bill right now.
Last week, lawmakers in Annapolis moved forward with fulfilling a promise.
It will close the juvenile sex offender loophole.
A promise made after an explosive Project Baltimore report found a juvenile rapist was taking classes at Patterson High School in Baltimore City.
Why? Would we have this be the most important thing? Well, I'm not sure if you've seen it on the news. It's been all over the Baltimore news.
On Thursday, the House Judiciary Committee.
Here's my question. I normally don't do this.
For more than 10 hours, heard testimony concerning Maryland's juvenile justice system.
We would respectfully request an unfavorable report.
A main topic during this year's 90-day legislative session. Throughout the hearing, multiple pieces of juvenile justice legislation were debated. About 8 hours into the hearing, Baltimore County Delegate Kathy Schlega introduced this amendment.
What the amendment says is very simple.
A child may not attend a public school in person if the child has been convicted of rape or a sexual offense that, if committed by an adult, would constitute a felony. Each county board shall provide alternative educational options for children prohibited from in-person attendance. Delegate Schlega told Project Baltimore that amendment, or some version of it, should be added to whatever legislation the House passes this year concerning juvenile justice reform.
This is happening right now. And, if you do nothing this session, please close this juvenile sex offender loophole. Thank you.
If Schlega's amendment becomes law, it would help prevent another situation like what happened at Patterson High School last month. In January, Project Baltimore first reported on a juvenile rapist attending Patterson. In December, the student pleaded to second-degree rape in Harford County. Later this month, the 15-year-old will be in court facing another second-degree rape charge involving a second alleged victim in Baltimore County. Despite all that, he was allowed to take classes inside a public school. And because he's a juvenile who was not placed on the sex offender registry, parents and students were not informed.
I was sickened, I was angered, I was disgusted.
Republican and Democratic lawmakers were outraged.
As a parent, as any parent, immediately it was a sense of horror and hard to understand.
Project Baltimore last week sent an email to all 188 state lawmakers. We asked if they believe it's appropriate for a rapist to be attending a public school, and if this is an issue the legislature should consider addressing this session. We received many responses, mostly from Republicans, all of them stating how sex offenders should not be in public schools with other students. The House Republican caucus even issued this statement, announcing their efforts to change state law to protect school children. The House Republican leadership also sent an email to the Department of Juvenile Services Secretary Vincent Schiraldi, in part asking, why was this individual not required to register as a sex offender? Did the department know of those pending charges? And was it appropriate that no incarceration was recommended? DJS has not yet responded. Meanwhile, some Democrats have announced their intentions concerning juvenile rapists attending public schools. Democrat Sandy Bartlett from Anne Arundel County responded to our email. I support alternative teaching methods for the offender.
They have been found effectively guilty on the juvenile side of having done awful, terrible things. There is a public safety question that needs to be addressed.
The Judiciary Committee, where Delegate Schlega introduced her amendment,
we're going to get started with our bill,
is chaired by Delegate Luke Klippinger, a Democrat from Baltimore City. Klippinger told FOX45 he and his colleagues in the House and Senate are working to address this issue. But it's tricky because students, he said, must be safe in school, but juvenile offenders must also be educated.
At the end of the day, we want to make sure that people who go to school can go to a school that's safe, and we want to make sure that we can do that while at the same time making sure that those juveniles, after they're found delinquent, they can get their education. It just probably not going to be in a traditional school setting.
How confident are you that legislation will be passed to address this issue?
I feel like if we're able to get people around the table and work this out, hopefully we should be able to do that.
Project Baltimore will continue to follow this story. We will keep you updated on the progress of any legislation coming out of Annapolis that is intended to keep your children safe in school. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Project Baltimore would like to hear from you. Do you have a story to share about your child's education or concern you'd like our team to investigate? Call the tip line on your screen or send an email to projectbaltimore@foxbaltimore.com. You can also find us on social media. Well, the president's age has been a topic of the 2024 election cycle, how the GOP plans to use it to try and get him out of office. Who needs Valentine's Day when you have good friends and great food? A closer look at an alternative holiday some are celebrating to thank their loved ones.
I always wondered how you could do that with your guy friends. Galentine's Day has a nice ring to it, but Guyentine's Day? I don't know. Help me out there in a minute. All right, we're going to keep this trend of chilly air around for some time. We are tracking another chance for snow, too. Yep, here we go. We're going to talk about it coming up.
Republicans are going all in on President Biden's age. According to Axios, House Republicans are preparing a weeks-long attempt to play up concerns about Biden's mental fitness, including hearings and subpoenas for documents. Axios says it's not so much a fact-finding mission as much as it is a means of keeping Biden's age, 81, on the top of voters' minds. Democrats say Biden's fine and his age is not a concern.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on in the Middle East and around the world.
As legal experts around the country are saying, it just goes off the rails. It's a shabby piece of work.
Well, that's one of Biden's attorneys referring to the special counsel's report on Biden's handling of classified documents. That report said he was forgetful about key moments of his life. Painting Biden in such a way comes with risk for Republicans, particularly given that the GOP frontrunner Donald Trump is in his late 70s. Well, the results are in for Monday's question of the day. We asked, do you think presidential candidates should be on TikTok? 10% of you said yes, 90% said no. Well, this year, Ash Wednesday and Valentine's Day are on the same day. February 14th is fixed as the annual day of love for couples, friends, and family. But the start of the most penitent season for some Christians, Ash Wednesday collides with Valentine's Day. Ash Wednesday doesn't have a fixed date. Its timing is linked to Easter Sunday, of course, and Easter also moves each year between mid-March and April. This year, Easter falls on March 31st. Well, when you have good drinks and great friends, who needs Valentine's Day? This morning, Be More lifestyle host Mark Clark was at Bar Louie celebrating Galentine's Day with all of the special offers.
We're at Bar Louie's for Galentine's Day. So, Ian, you just whipped up this delicious drink. Tell us about it.
Yes, so this is one of our featured martinis in the month of February. It's called From Paris with Love. We make it with some Grey Goose Le Citron, Chambord raspberry liqueur, pineapple juice, some simple syrup, and also some French rosé shaken up in there. And you can see a fresh raspberry garnish as well.
Nice, and I just had a little sip, guys. Sorry, I did taste it. Okay, Chanel, so Galentine's Day, it's a special day.
Yes.
Tell us what you're offering.
So starting today, I mean, you could come and get this martini whenever you like, but starting tomorrow, we actually have a Valentine's Day dinner starting tomorrow all the way till Sunday. Really, really good dinner plan for 2 people come in and enjoy dinner with us. And we have a lot of specials, brunch, martinis. Just come check us out here in the White Marsh location, and I have everything you need for a good holiday.
Everything you need. So once again, happy Galentine's Day for all the gals and the pals. And, you know, happy Galentine's Day. Mark Clark, Fox 45 News.
You did it. Did you hear it? You made it up. We were trying to think of one for guys.
What did I say?
It's Palentine's Day.
Oh, is that what he said?
No, you said pal. Your gals and pals. Palentine's Day. Okay,
I like that.
guys, you could.
I like that, Gerard.
Copyright, Gerard Jabali, Palentine's Day. I want royalties for this one, all right? All right, good evening, everyone. Certainly a far cry from where we began this day, right? Fat Tuesday started out pretty messy, and now we've got just some wind. We've got some sunshine out there. It is chilly. We'll continue to watch as the mercury falls tonight, but we're at least not going to see any more flakes falling down. We had some fat flakes this Fat Tuesday in a lot of places. We saw everywhere from 4 inches up to 7 inches of snow, some of our northern counties. Looks like Baltimore County had upwards of around 3.5, but again, most of this was in the grassy surfaces, so at least the roads, for the most part, weren't as problematic as they could have been if our temperatures were a little warmer. Now, we're in the 40s. We'll continue to see those temperatures falling anywhere the roads are wet and remain wet tonight, which is not many, but they could freeze over a bit, leading to a couple slick spots. But otherwise, it is just going to be pretty quiet. The wind should calm down a little bit as well as that system pulls away, and we're just going to be getting down to those chilly temperatures into the upper 20s. Your Valentine's Day starts out pretty cold again, but we're reaching, the low 40s before we're back to some cold temperatures in the overnight. So it's going to be wearing your nicest, spiffiest coat that you have on your Valentine's Day date. Make sure you are sporting the best for your special someone. Next weather makers on the way as we move over the next couple of days. This one is going to impact around Thursday. It's just a cold front. It's going to knock our temperatures back, but produce very little precipitation. And then a better chance for some rain or some snowflakes. Depending on the track of this one, is going to arrive sometime late Friday or into Saturday. We could see some accumulations with this, still too far away. In the meantime, be struck with Cupid's arrow tomorrow and enjoy high of only 41 degrees, but at least we have the sunshine around. 34 by the evening, so again, still kind of cold. Our average is 46, so we're not getting anywhere near that until we're getting closer to Thursday, and then that front comes through, knocks our temperatures back again. We're back to the low 40s, and there is that chance for some rain and possibly some snowfall. We'll, of course, detail that as we get a little bit closer, but as you can tell, it looks fairly dry otherwise, staying cooler until Tuesday.
Dramatic dash cam video shows the moments a plane crashed. Look at this on an interstate. This is an interstate in Naples, Florida. Look at that. And it just erupts into a fireball. That video shows that plane descending before it just bursts into flames. Now, officials say the pilot radioed Naples Air Traffic Control saying the plane had lost both engines and requested an emergency landing. The pilot was trying to land on the interstate when the plane just crashed. The other 3 people on the plane survived. The FAA is currently investigating. Coming up at 5 o'clock, a group of kids caught on camera robbing a man in Baltimore this weekend. We hear the youth crime concerns from city residents.
Romance may be in the air, but so is the risk for a certain kind of injury. I'm Liz Bonus with an important story in men's health. It is just ahead.
Here's a message to parents right now. This next story is one you may not want your children to watch. Men's health specialists say the risk of a certain injury goes up going into Valentine's Day. Medical reporter Lisbona shares why it's important to seek medical attention right away.
Hey there, hello to you. This injury, not the usual concern that brings people into the emergency room, but a new study, one of the first to show that the risk for this painful problem is higher for guys when romance is in the air. Researchers found that romance may be linked to an intimate injury. After tracking hospital stays for more than 3,000 men for 15 years, they found when they looked at days of the week and months of the year, there was a 1.2% rise in penile fractures around romantic holidays such as Christmas.
But they also found this on weekends and summertime. So think times where sexual activity may be something that people partake in a little more, there's going to be a higher risk of penile fracture.
The fracture itself, he says, is not a true break, but rather likely a rupture of the lining, which can lead to blood in the urine. It sometimes needs a repair or a rebuild to make sure the blood flow stays in the proper space. Dr. Parush Babar of Ohio's Urology Group says this most recent study is likely to be a low estimate.
We in the United States think that it's between 1 in 100,000 to 200,000 men will experience a penile fracture. And certainly I think that's underreported because many men will, due to embarrassment, not go in and ride it out at home, which is not the right thing to do.
So what makes that not the right thing to do? Don't these heal on their own?
Yeah, so I think generally, it will heal, but will it heal correctly, right? So that's what it comes down. I don't think it will heal correctly. A lot of times what I see patients who have had, like a very, let's say, minor penile fracture who ride it out at home, they come in with either erectile dysfunction, okay, or they get scar tissue in the area of the penile fracture, and then that creates deformities to the penis, whether that's curvature, which precludes intercourse, or they can get what we call hourglass deformities, where there's a narrow waist there. And so it's better to have a true penile fracture looked at in a semi-urgent fashion and then have a urologist go in and evaluate and correct it at that time.
It usually takes about 6 weeks to heal, Dr. Babar says. If you do need a surgical repair or procedure, with your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, multiple school systems closed today, but not every area saw the same snowfall. Why so many parents in Baltimore County are frustrated with that decision. State lawmakers are battling over the right path to move forward on juvenile crime, how new polling could help show what Marylanders want to do. The state lawmakers meet today to discuss more juvenile crime bills, this time from Republicans. We have a live report from Annapolis with the proposals currently on the table.
Officials in Howard County announcing the takedown of a notorious gang, the major conviction, as we take a closer look into the gang's origins.
And winter weather hits Maryland today. Looking ahead to what's next as parents voice frustrations over school closures in one county.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
And good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. A Senate committee hearing testimony right now on new juvenile crime bills.
It comes as we see more instances of juveniles getting involved in violence, both as victims and suspects.
With pressure mounting for lawmakers to take action in Annapolis, Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is there as the committee hears those issues. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Kai and Mary, we are going on almost 4 hours now of testimony as these lawmakers on this Senate committee continue to debate several bills involving the current juvenile justice system. Now, one of the bills we heard earlier today really centered around the Child Interrogation Protection Act. Supporters of this bill, which requires an attorney to give permission for law enforcement to question a juvenile during a custodial interrogation, supporters argue that this law is there to protect children and that the critics of this simply don't understand the current laws. However, critics of this, like police and state's attorneys from all across the state, as we have continued to hear, argue that it is hindering their ability to question and hinders the entire investigation of a specific crime. Before the committee actually started, we spoke with the state's attorney from Wicomico County, who argues she understands the law and that's why she thinks it needs to change.
Anyone who has a question should read the law, and they should talk to somebody who practically applies the law. It effectively, quite literally, prevents the questioning of child suspects who are children.
Now, there's also been debate about a bill that would get the state's attorney's office involved earlier in the process when determining whether they should file charges against a young offender at the Department of Juvenile Services. This bill also would lengthen the time of probation for certain offenses. Now, this is separate from one of the larger bills that was introduced by top Democrats earlier this month involving juvenile justice, but this bill specifically really faced some intense debate, and one of the supporters argues that the state's attorney's office really does need to get a handle and get involved earlier because, according to the supporters of this proposal, they argue the current system simply is not working.
The Department of Juvenile Services absolutely has to fill out another piece of paper and send it to the state's attorney's office. It requires more work of the state's attorney's office, and we're in favor of it because we have a community that is very upset about how things are handled at the Department of Juvenile Services, and the fact is that if they do, what's happening at the department is not satisfying to our community, and it's just a revolving door of these youth in and out, and absolutely no checks and balances.
Now, a lot of the bills that we're talking about today are Republican-backed bills, and doing the math, in order for these bills to see success, given the Democratic supermajority, some Democrats will need to come on board and support these ideas if there will be a success and a path forward. No votes were taken today in this committee, and the testimony is continuing on other bills right now. However, I am told there could be another voting session scheduled later this week. Kai?
And Mackenzie, what can you tell us about a proposal to make having a stolen gun a felony in Maryland?
Yeah, this specific bill has been part of Republican-backed packages of legislation that has been introduced for years, and it is once again this year. Right now in Maryland, it's a misdemeanor offense to possess a stolen firearm. This bill being discussed would make that crime a felony, and given the results that we saw from the latest Gonzalez research poll out today, indicates that Marylanders do support moving forward with changing this offense to a felony. According to the poll, 88% of Marylanders say that they believe possessing a stolen firearm should be a felony. Patrick Gonzalez, the pollster behind this latest poll, says that given these numbers, it outlines a path forward for Maryland lawmakers to make a change.
The Maryland legislature and Maryland voters' minds needs to pass a law that makes possession of a stolen firearm a felony. But this is one of those issues. It's a serious, very important issue. Stop playing. Don't play games. If you, in your heart as a legislator, just can't do it for yourself, please do it for your constituents.
Now again, this bill introduced once again this year, and a House committee is expected to take it up for debate tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see if there is movement on it in the past. The Senate has passed this plan, but it continues to stall in the House. We'll have to wait and see if there's momentum given this latest poll for lawmakers to do something different this year. We're live in Annapolis. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Nancy, thank you. 2 weeks ago, Democrats unveiled their juvenile crime plan, which includes 3 main pillars. They want to change a portion of the state's current crime code. Right now, children under 13 can't be charged with certain crimes like firearm offenses, sexual assault, and car thefts.
Democrats are also looking for changes within the Department of Juvenile Services, including shorter deadlines for intake decisions and more staff within the ankle monitoring unit.
And the plan strives to extend probation for young offenders. Supporters of the new plan argue the current system doesn't allow enough time for proper rehabilitation, and they want judges and attorneys more involved in the process. And that brings us to our question of the day. Who do you trust to handle the juvenile crime crisis, Republicans or Democrats? So far, 92% of those who voted say Republicans. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to make your voice heard.
As lawmakers debate how to move forward, Marylanders are feeling the brunt of the juvenile crime crisis. Over the weekend, there were multiple juvenile robberies in Baltimore's Pigtown neighborhood, according to police. The first took place at a Pigtown liquor store on Washington Boulevard. Fox 45 News has obtained video of that robbery in the store. In the footage, you can see a victim surrounded by a group of suspects. Police say at least 8 people were in the group, ranging in age from 10 to 18. Police say they grab at the victim's pockets, push him, and then steal his money before leaving. Hours later, 2 16-year-olds and an 11-year-old were arrested for shoving a man and stealing his wallet on Sterrett Street. It's unclear if these incidents are connected. Coming up later this hour, Fox 45's Keith Daniels takes a closer look at that liquor store robbery and hears the concerns from Baltimore residents about kids out of control. A jury's guilty verdict for the leader of the 59 Hoover gang, which operated out of Howard County, marks the end of a nearly 4-year-long case.
Alexa Asheville has more on this verdict and how authorities dismantled this gang.
Jeremy Quinton Lewis, the named leader of the 59 Hoover gang, a subset of the notorious Crips that officials say had staked its claim in Columbia, Maryland, found guilty of murder and other gang-related charges.
Good morning, everyone.
Howard County State's Attorney Rich Gibson making the announcement alongside Howard County Executive Calvin Ball and area law enforcement leaders. All 8 members of the 59 Hoover gang indicted 2 years ago, now convicted. Its leader, Lewis, the latest.
This last case, involving 8 members of the 59 Hoover criminal gang, has concluded with the conviction of its leader.
The investigation into the 59 Hoover gang dates back to 2020, when officials say investigators determined the gang was responsible for committing the most serious crimes in Howard County.
Our investigators determined that many, if not most, of the serious crimes in Howard County could be linked to this small group. Investigations of guns, drugs, and violence kept leading to the same suspects.
2 years later, the members were indicted. This court document detailing the hierarchy of the gang, how members used drugs and guns to carry out their criminal enterprise, and specific murders, shootings, assaults, and robberies investigators say they committed throughout Howard County. Lewis just found guilty of one of those murders, the May 2021 shooting death of Jaden Ely at a gas station in Columbia. Authorities linked the gang to at least one other killing, charging another one of its leaders, Daquan Woodson, with the May 2020 murder of Yasel Galvin.
Another defendant was Daquan Woodson, pled guilty to conspiracy to commit robbery, use of a firearm in the commission of a crime of violence, assault in the first degree, and gang involvement. He received a sentence of 65 years, suspended all but 18 years.
Here, it details Woodson was an adjudicated delinquent, meaning as a youth he was found by a judge to have violated a criminal law. His conviction in this case speaking to the ongoing calls for reform to the juvenile justice system, as whatever consequence he faced did not deter further criminal behavior.
There was drugs, there was gun offenses, there was gun dealing, there were assaults, controlling turf.
A shocking reality to some. Colombia has been named the safest city in America twice in recent years. Officials questioned on that.
We've taken a significant step in reducing their involvement here in Howard County. As long as people continue to look out for one another and speak up when they see things that are in error, we can work together to ensure that our safety remains a paramount virtue for this community.
Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Out here shoveling snow this morning. Wasn't expecting it at all. Yesterday I was outside breaking like we were talking about. Now today it's snowing.
I was expecting some snow. I was not expecting school to be canceled.
Residents across Maryland waking up to some snowy conditions this morning, and some school systems like Baltimore County even got a snow day, but not everybody is that happy about it.
That's right, Mary. In fact, some parents took to Twitter to voice their frustration with the decision. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker joins us live with the closer look. And Maxine, we do have to acknowledge that if you live in like the southern part of Baltimore County, that's different than living in the Hereford zone. We know Hereford sometimes, they'll close that down and leave the rest of the county open. They are different climate systems.
Absolutely, and a lot of parents pointing that out on Twitter, but there was some frustration after Baltimore County Public Schools made that announcement around 7 o'clock this morning. Of course, at the time, it was snowing. That snow a few hours later changing over to rain, and now if you take a look, things are drying. It's like it never happened here in Baltimore County. But online, a lot of parents weighing in, saying it literally is just raining, temps above freezing, closed for rain, and add a day to the end of the school year. I went to school in the snow when I was a kid. Another tweeting, it's going to be close to 50 degrees today, and it was a lot warmer here earlier today. Another on Twitter calling the decision crazy, saying closing because it's cold and a little snow. They said it's called winter. But as you mentioned, others pointing out that conditions are not always what you see out your window and can be different in other parts of the county. Gerald saying it was snowing hard north and roads were covered. Of course, as you got closer to that Hereford zone and up into Carroll County, where schools were also closed, they did see more snow today. And now the concern is maybe some of these wet spots could refreeze overnight. So if you are out, you'll need to be careful. Reporting live in Towson, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
All right, Maxine, Mary and I are happy to have you back and glad to see you have your hat on. I think it was a Carhartt. Well, many of you are sharing your snow day pictures with us right now. Just look at that. Oh, that's cute. Jessica shared this photo, which we have to say is snow cute, Mary. She says her daughter had to sneak in some snowman kisses right before Valentine's Day. I missed that. My girls are bigger now, so I don't get daddy kisses anymore.
It's so cute. And Jessica's family isn't the only one practicing their snowman making skills. Benita is sharing this photo of her and her grandbabies with their very own snowman. Very good. They got that built so quickly this morning. Whether you built a snowman, had a snowball fight, or stayed warm inside with a cup of hot cocoa or coffee this morning, we want to see how you spent your snow day. Scan that QR code right there on your screen. It'll take you to foxbaltimore.com, where you can upload your pictures and your videos, all powered by Stackla.
All right, now the big question is, with the snow not melting, it's gone for the most part.
Yes, exactly.
Will it freeze overnight, whatever was around the roads, causing more problems in the morning?
Exactly. Meteorologist Gerard Jabali's here. We won't have any problems, do you think?
I don't think so. And if so, they will be very minor. It's only those places that may have, like, where water tends to collect, those slick spots. Sure. But that's if they haven't dried out yet.
Great, because the sun has been out for a couple hours now.
Been very helpful to have that around. But the snow this morning was the right kind, in my opinion, especially for the snowmen. It compacts perfectly, so I'm gonna miss that. All right, let's talk about what is coming our way in the next couple of days. The first, we get to get rid of of course, the storm system, but it is also going to get quite chilly tonight. There it is, continuing to track off of the coast of Cape Cod. In fact, it's just about gone from them, but they saw quite a bit. They saw almost a foot of snow up that direction. We're at 45 degrees. The wind has been pretty brisk today. Northwest around 15. We've seen it gusting over 25 at times, and that should calm down a good bit tonight as well, but it will be back again tomorrow. So here's the way things are breaking down hour by hour this evening, continuing to stay fairly clear. A few clouds in the air, but we'll be dropping down to the mid-30s. By 1, it will be getting very close to the 20s later on tonight. So we're going to talk about the cold that's going to begin your Valentine's Day, but there's some good news in there. And we'll talk about also our next chance for snowfall, which we already are looking at coming up.
Thanks. A new poll out showing where Marylanders stand on some of the most pressing issues in the state, breaking down the data on a potential tax increase, crime policy, and more.
Baltimoreans are making their voices heard where the public stands on the city's plans to completely reshape the Inner Harbor.
And up next, a group of juveniles caught robbing a victim on camera. The calls for accountability from Baltimore residents as the youth crime crisis continues.
Join us on Monday, February 19th from 7 to 8 p.m. when Governor Wes Moore, Maryland State Attorney Ivan Bates, and Prince George's County State Attorney Aisha Brayboy join us to discuss crime, solutions, and the community. I'm Armstrong Williams.
Fox 45 News has obtained surveillance video appearing to show several juveniles robbing and assaulting a man inside a store in Pigtown. The youngest suspect, just 10 years old, too young to face charges under Maryland law for his alleged involvement. Fox 45's Keith Daniels taking a closer look at the incident and the juvenile crime crisis in the city.
In the Pigtown neighborhood in South Baltimore, the story of a 10-year-old boy involved in an unarmed robbery. The victim, a man making a purchase at a store on Washington Boulevard near Parkin Street. At about 7:30 Saturday night, one woman in the neighborhood disturbed by the age of one of the young suspects.
It's troublesome. In our city right now, that's what's going on. But at the same token, it's troublesome.
Tonight, the accused caught on camera. Surveillance footage obtained by Fox 45 News. Look closely. You see the victim walk in the store alone. Then police say at least 8 juvenile males ranging in age from 10 to 18 years old walked in the store, began surrounding the man, demanded money, grabbed the victim's pockets. The victim seen pulling away, pushing the suspect's back. The 10-year-old boy, look at him, seemingly the most aggressive. Investigators say the man then gave the suspects his money, $10, at which point the young offenders left the store, last seen running through a playground. The incident in Pigtown comes just 2 weeks after Maryland Democrats released their juvenile crime plan in Annapolis, a plan that would allow children under the age of 13 to be charged with certain violent crimes currently blocked under controversial reform laws. a plan which received bipartisan support that calls for more accountability for young offenders, says Governor Wes Moore.
We need to make sure that actions have consequences, yes. And we need to make sure that our kids are getting the rehabilitation that they need.
Meanwhile, back in Pigtown, police did make an arrest in the robbery, 2 16-year-old boys and 1 13-year-old boy. The 10-year-old and the others still on the loose as neighbors ponder over what happened and look for accountability, even from the suspect's parents.
A lot of children right now in the city of Baltimore don't have a parent. And if they have a parent, a lot of parents not indulging or involved with the child. It's a frustrating situation when you talk about children.
Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
That Pigtown robbery wasn't the only crime that was caught on camera last week. This video from Friday night shows 2 suspects moments before police say they robbed a victim. Happened just after 8:30 along Bolton Street in West Baltimore. Anybody with information on either of the suspects asked to call Baltimore police. And a double murder also caught on camera. Thursday night, just before 10, 2 people were killed in the shooting at a convenience store on Bel Air Road. The suspect, wearing all black, arrived at the store in a white Chrysler van. Minutes later, he shot and killed 1 victim outside the store and a second in a nearby car. He ran from the scene, followed by the car he arrived in. Metro Crime Stoppers is offering an $8,000 reward to anyone with information leading to an arrest.
Good evening. It has been, of course, a messy start to your Fat Tuesday, but now at least it has improved a lot. We saw the sunshine come out. It's still been breezy. We can actually see that pretty well from our sky cam here, right on the upper part of the harbor. And you can tell the streaks right there in the water. Some of that is just the wind blowing right across the harbor. So we're continuing to see some gusty winds, but that's the worst thing we've really had to deal with today, other than, of course, the morning snowfall, which totaled up quite a bit in some places. Now, most of us to the south did not really see it impacting the roads too much. It melted mostly on contact. It collected in the grass, but that's not the story, and that's not the way it was to a lot of other places where they saw 4 plus 5, 6, close to 7 inches of snow there up in Garrett County. So it was a very different system and a very different impact depending on where you were. And that's why we did see some closures for schools or delays based upon all that. All right, let's talk about our temperatures again. In the 40s right now, but we're going to be dipping down tonight, dropping to the 20s. Most areas have dried out very nicely. The sun, the wind, and the clear skies help to dry things up very quickly. But any lingering water on the ground could freeze over as temperatures will dip to the 20s. Tomorrow is going to be a breezy one once again, and it's still going to be pretty chilly for your Valentine's Day. We're going to start out cold and then warm up to only around the 40 to 42 degree mark, dropping back to the 20s overnight on Wednesday night. But we've got another system coming on Thursday, by the way. Our next weather maker is not a big one. It looks very small, maybe bringing a brief sprinkle overnight on Thursday night, but it's going to knock temperatures back going into Friday and even into Saturday ahead of this one. And once we have some cold air in place, the next system has more potential to produce some rain or snow, depending on the track here. Now, we'll be watching this, but your Saturday could get a little messier depending on that. We're not expecting this to be a major storm system, but could see some impacts. We'll watch and let you know. Meanwhile, your Valentine's Day looking breezy, chilly. Again, a high of only around 41 degrees. That's about 5 off the average. And then the evening, of course, another still pretty chilly evening to go out and about. If you're trying to get some dinner with your special someone, probably want some good jackets to wear, as it's going to be kind of brisk. And we'll keep those temperatures in the 40s the rest of the week through the weekend. And there's our chance for some rain, possibly some snow on Saturday.
How far could a 1% sales tax increase go in funding state projects? Breaking down a new poll that's asking Marylanders where they stand on footing the bill.
A former partner with front row seats to the Biden family businesses speaks to House investigators. I'm Christine Frizzell with what we're learning and what's next.
Tonight, the House Oversight Committee is moving forward with their impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. Later this month, they will speak to his son Hunter about his business deals and his father's involvement. In the meantime, they have just released the transcript from a meeting with one former business partner and met with another one today. National correspondent Christine Frizzau has the story.
What are you planning to tell? Former Hunter Biden business partner Tony Bobulinski on Capitol Hill for a closed-door interview with the House Oversight Committee. We obtained a copy of his opening statement in which he calls Joe Biden, quote, the brand being sold by the Biden family, which he says sold out to foreign actors seeking to gain influence and access to Joe Biden and the United States government. Foreign actors involved in companies in places like Russia, China, and Ukraine.
China's our biggest adversary, and we need to know exactly what the Chinese were paying the Biden family members for. Good evening.
Bobulinski first came forward in October of 2020, one of the first to suggest Hunter Biden's business deals involved not only other Biden family members, but Joe Biden himself, referencing emails like this, summarizing the allocation of equity of a deal those involved say never came to fruition.
There's no question that H stands for Hunter, big guy for his father, Joe Biden.
This contradicts what the White House has said time and time again. As another transcript just released with another Biden business partner, Rob Walker, suggests Joe Biden did drop by a meeting with officials from the Chinese energy company CEFC, likely in 2017 when Joe Biden was out of office. The White House has maintained Joe Biden never had any influence over his son's businesses and certainly never profited from them, as the investigation to prove otherwise carries on.
When it comes to issues like corruption and personal enrichment, it's pretty clear cut. Either you got money and you didn't. Either you had meetings and you didn't. And the fact of the matter is that they have not answered those questions clearly.
Hunter Biden himself is scheduled to sit for a closed-door deposition on February 28th, where House investigators say they hope to get answers to many of these questions, but which critics say is simply an attempt to keep the spotlight on the Biden family businesses in an election year. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzau.
And that brings us to our national question of the day. Do you think Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings create a national security threat? So far, 91% of those who voted say yes. To weigh in, head to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab. Well, the public is getting its first chance to weigh in on the new Harbor Place plans, what we're hearing when it comes to hopes and concerns over the project.
I'm Atrell Nashar in Washington with a look at January's disappointing inflation report and why prices didn't come down as much as experts had hoped.
A new Gonzales research poll highlights a range of issues, including Governor Moore's approval rating, the issue of stolen firearms, and increasing taxes for transportation projects.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost joining us live to break down these new numbers. Mackenzie.
Yeah, Mary and Kai, the latest Gonzales poll really underscores some of the biggest issues that lawmakers are going to have to grapple with at some point, and that's really how to pay for transportation, right? We know that there is a $3 billion shortfall over the next couple of years in the Department of Transportation's budget. Governor Wes Moore has tapped into the rainy day fund to help offset some of those budget cuts for this budget year, but future funding really remains a large question that lawmakers will have to answer. There's been a lot of proposals kicked around, including the possibility of raising taxes, not this year, but that was one of the questions that was asked to Maryland voters in this latest poll. Would they support raising the sales tax from 6% to 7% to help fund transit and projects, roadways, and other infrastructures across Maryland? And according to the voters, 60% of them say no thank you.
And the reality is a penny equals 6%, which is currently the sales tax, to 7%. So I think it's fair. Now, if we go the other direction, I can make a very good case. If you increase the sales tax from 6% to 7%, yeah, it's a penny, but 6 to 7 is a 16.666% increase.
That was pollster Patrick Gonzales behind these new numbers, and he really argues that lawmakers will have to figure out what to do next. And the idea of raising sales tax isn't the only idea being kicked around in the halls of the General Assembly right now. There's also a conversation about how to handle the increase in electric vehicle usage that we have on the roads. Electric vehicles, supporters say, better for the environment, but the drivers are not paying for gas and therefore not paying the state's gas tax, and that's really taking a hit to the state's transportation fund. So this question continues to loom. Lawmakers say this is a problem that they are probably going to deal with next session, and this poll really indicates the upward battle that they're going to have to figure out how to find a solution. We're live at Annapolis. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. The Gonzales poll also addressed Governor Moore's job approval. As Moore nears the halfway point of his second session, 58% of those polled said they approve of the job he's doing as governor. 28% disapprove, with 14% giving no response.
What I would call them are good numbers. And oftentimes I get asked to compare it to his predecessor, Governor Larry Hogan, in his 8 years, who always had very high numbers. But that's not a fair comparison. In my mind, a fair comparison would be comparing Governor Wes Moore's numbers with Governor Martin O'Malley. It's more both Democrats, both dealing with a hostile party, the Republicans, in that. And I would say in that context, Governor Moore's numbers stack up pretty good.
Last week, Governor Moore unveiled his state plan for 2024. The governor says the plan complements his budget and legislative agenda. It focuses on 10 priorities, including ending child poverty, setting up students for success, making communities safer, creating more affordable housing, and making Maryland a leader in clean energy. Many critics have been wary of the governor's spending as he faces and the state faces a $1.8 billion deficit by the end of the decade.
Yesterday, we asked you, do you support raising taxes to pay for Governor Moore's state plan? 98% of those who voted said no. Well, what's next for Baltimore's iconic Harbor Place is back up for discussion and debate at City Hall right now.
The City Council is considering legislation on zoning and a possible charter amendment to allow apartments flanking the harbor. Fox 45's Amy Simpson is live after sitting in on that hearing this afternoon. Amy?
Yeah, Mary, Kai, many agree that this prime waterfront real estate really needs attention and investment. But what that should look like moving forward is drawing plenty of opinions.
The renderings were unveiled in October. P. David Bramble of MCB Real Estate looking to breathe new life into the inner harbor.
This is a new mixed-use waterfront.
The project with clear support from the mayor.
We will not stop until this project comes to fruition so that the world can see that Baltimore is back.
It was once a heartbeat of the city and major tourist attraction. But in recent years, the Harbor Place pavilions fell into disrepair. And as economic activity dwindled, concerns over crime and public safety rose. Online, ourharborplace.com giving a three-dimensional look at the proposal to revamp the downtown waterfront. Looking to add hundreds of housing units, retail, commercial space, promenades, and amphitheater, plus trees and parks. But not everyone is on board with Bramble's vision for Harbor Place.
All of us were shocked by this monstrosity of a project that we had no idea was coming down the pike. Convince our city council that the process and the plan is not a good thing for Baltimore City.
Today, City Council's Economic and Community Development Committee hearing public input on bills to amend land use and zoning of the Inner Harbor and a proposed charter amendment that would permit multifamily residential development and off-street parking within the dedicated boundaries of Inner Harbor Park. According to the legislation, this charter amendment would need to go to Baltimore City voters for adoption or rejection.
Whether you love it, you hate it, you're not sure. Folks are interested in what could potentially happen here.
Today's hearing drawing a crowd, leaving few empty seats inside council chambers.
The time has come, and I think the time is now. MCB is the right team for the moment. The decision is yours, and I ask you to vote yes.
Proposing to privatize our public space is objectionable and wrong.
Indicating the magnitude of public interest in the redevelopment of this part of Baltimore and the split opinions on how to move forward.
So let's right now find the political will, financial means, planning capacity, and reasonable civic commitment.
I'm in favor of redeveloping Harbor Place, but not in the manner in which it's been proposed.
Now that hearing is entering its third hour. Public testimony continues. Right now, dozens of residents and businesses weighing in on both sides of this topic. Developer P. David Bramble was sitting in the front row. We're live at City Hall. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. For more coverage, more information on our coverage of the plans for Harbor Place, including specifics of the proposal, head to our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Well, it was a tough day for Wall Street after the latest consumer inflation report shows prices didn't cool down as much as investors hoped for. That means high interest rates could stick around until early summer. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has a look at where experts say prices are heading.
For almost 3 years, Americans' budgets have been weighed down by post-pandemic life inflation. The inflation rate moving at a snail's pace toward 2%, what the Federal Reserve considers normal, in January inching down to 3.1%.
We look at trends. That is something that we do here, and not read too much to data from 1 month. But we certainly understand that there's more work to be done to lower costs.
The White House insisting the economy's made progress, and while polls show Americans' feelings about the economy are improving, sentiment levels are still below historical averages, according to the University of Michigan. New analysis from J.P. Morgan says absent a recession next year, we don't see inflation getting all the way back down to 2%. A big reason why? The cost of services remains stubbornly high in the face of a labor shortage. The CEO of Waste Management explains how it's affecting them.
We have really looked at our cost side of our business because revenue is fine, but costs needed to be addressed as we look at jobs that are starting to kind of become precious for us.
When it comes to groceries, it's a mixed bag. The price of some items is lower than it was a year ago, like milk, eggs, coffee. At the same time, the American Farm Bureau Federation is out with a new warning about beef prices, which they say could soon reach record highs after 3 consecutive years of drought.
The Southern Plains, Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, some of those regions experiencing back-to-back-to-back drought. At the same time, we had inflation rising and bringing up our supply costs.
Another top driver of inflation that doesn't have a quick or easy fix, shelter. Rent is 6% higher than it was a year ago. And for many, buying a home is out of the question as the Federal Reserve keeps interest rates high, hoping that will